So a little bit about myself, right? So I'm Rajeev, and I'm currently working as a senior software engineer in Microsoft. I'm part of the PowerCat team, so where we build a couple of few renowned tools like COIK, ALM Accelerator, and all. And the latest addition to our kit is approvalKit. So I'm going to talk about approvalKit in this session. So there's a lot to cover, so I'm right away jumping into the topic. Yeah, so what I'm going to cover, I'm going to cover about why we need approvals, what is the necessity of approvals, and because we already have the natively available approval connector, which we also call as standard connector, and then why we have to go with the new custom connector, and what are the differences, and also I'm going to walk you through the demo. So I'm going to spend more time on the demo rather than on the theory part. And also I'm going to end with this with the learning path, like how if someone wants to get started with this, right? So what is the best way to get started? And also I'm going to touch base with a little bit of licensing and all. Yeah, okay. So the reason I put this slide, right? So these are very important. These has the links. And one of the link, right? It's a learn. So once I click on this learn, right, you'll be redirected to this thing. Okay, so where for a person, right, who is just getting started on the approvalKit, right, this is the best place to get started. So that's the reason I put the slide with these links. So yeah, I hope this is useful. Yeah, so next one, let's get started. What is approvals connector? And first of all, what are approvals, right? So every business, we create the data and also and also, right, so the data once gets created, in some scenarios, right, that require some approvals, like either by managers or somebody where we configure that who are the approvers. Okay, and if I have to talk a little bit about the stats, right, if you see that 90% of largest customers who are using the Power Platform, the flows, right? So they are using this approvals connector in their top 15 connectors available in the flow. So that's a substantial number. So that's the reason we decided to spend time on this thing, and we went ahead and built the approval connector. Okay, so which I'm going to talk about soon. Yeah, so next up, as I mentioned, the approvals, whenever the data as per the business, right? So whenever the data gets created in the system, so the data needs to go like a multi-level approvals and all. So what are the typical examples? So if I have to talk about examples, right? So one is the document approvals. For example, as a technician, right? I might upload some work order related document which requires approval from my superiors and all, and similarly with invoices and all. That's where the document approvals. And now coming to the process approvals. If you take any typical organization where employees request vacations, and the vacation request needs to go to the manager, and of course there'll be some rules that, okay, if the vacation, the number of days that the requester is putting, right, if it is more than 2 weeks and all, definitely it would require some other additional layer of approvals. And similarly, that expenses and travel, right, these are pretty basic approvals which we all build in the applications. And finally, that the third thing is approval component. So now this approval component, right, which is a component where you can put in your flow in the typical orchestration model and make that whole approval works. Anyway, so these things, right, if things are not clear at this point of time, just don't worry, because we have a detailed demo coming up, so you would understand what I'm talking about. Moving to the next slide. So currently, what are the options we have for approvals? So as I mentioned, right, so this icon, this is the pre-built connector. I hope you are all familiar with Cloud Flows, and where in Cloud Flows, right, you have a triggers and actions. And if you go to the actions, right, there you can go and add this approval connector as an action, and then you can configure it. Okay, so this is out of the box. I mean, you don't need to install any additional solution on top of your Power Platform environment. Okay, these are pretty comes out of the box, and this is generally available, and you can use it in your production, and of course, it's in the business from last couple of years already. Now coming to the approval kit. So why we need approval kit and how it is different than the existing approval kit. I'll touch base in the upcoming slides, but now components wise, right? Approval kit, it's a collection of components. This you need to install on top of your Power Platform environment. And this comprises of these three things. So this approval kit comes with a prerequisite of creator kit. So the creator kit solution needs to be installed first before installing the approval kit. And within that approval kit, it has its own tables, the Dataverse tables, and its own Power App, and also the Power Automate flows. And of course, we also have the custom connector. Yep. Okay, so moving to the next slide. With this, right, I hope you get some basic idea of that. What is that pre-built connector does, and also what is that approval kit, which comes as an add-on on top of your environment. Of course, you have to install it. So those are the basic differences. Now let's see how the standard connector looks like. Okay, so as I mentioned in the previous screen, right, we have a standard connector, approval connector that comes out of the box. And if you have to build a flow, the typical approval flow with the standard connector, right, it looks like this. And if you see, right, so here I have a automated trigger whenever a record gets created in the table, right? And if the price is greater than 400 rupees, and then it has to go to the manager approval. And if it is less than or equal to 400, right? So there is another approval. So probably it needs to go to a different direction for approval. Okay, so if you see here, we have to put the branching conditions and everything. And also you have to put you have to add multiple standard connectors to make this whole business logic work. Yeah, so now let's go ahead and see how the same thing looks like if we go with the approval kit connector. So now in the approval kit, if you go with that approval kit approval connector, so it looks like this. Okay, and of course there is some background configurations we have to do, but once you make the configurations and everything, but your flow looks like this. You will have your trigger, and then you will have your approval process. Okay, so that's it. And the branching, the condition, looping, and everything, it'll be configured here so that it'll be taken care. So your flow basically looks much sleeker because the conditions and everything, right, that will be handled at the configuration level. Okay. So now why approval kit? So probably I'll come back to the screen towards end of the session, because by the time you would have more knowledge on the topics, so the bullet points I mentioned here. But one key aspect I need to mention, right? The standard connector, approval connector comes with the product is it doesn't require, it's a standard connector, then as the name suggests, right? It doesn't require any premium license and all. Of course, if you have any Office 365 seeded license and all, you would be able to use the standard connector. And now coming to the approval kit. Okay, if you as you see, right, I'm just talking about only the last point, but remaining points I'm going to come back to this slide again towards the end. But for now, just I'm just touch basing upon the licensing thing. Approval kit, because approval kit, it uses the Dataverse tables and everything. It requires the premium license. Okay, so that's the two important factors to be considered. So if you don't have premium licenses bought in yet, right, in your tenant, so then you would want to go with the standard connector. But if you already have a premium licenses bought in, then you might want to consider this approval kit. Yep, and the rest of the things I'll come back to this slide as I mentioned. Okay, so now now we're going to start the demo. I'm going to talk about, I'm going to show you how to get started and also how to build a simple approval flow. But this is the example I'm going to cover. Yep. Basically that there'll be some request that comes in. And here we are going to use one of the built-in app called Machine Request, Coffee Machine Request app. So by leveraging that, right, we're going to create some requests, and in the background, we'll be configuring the approvalKit flows. And together, we'll see how we can build a nice approval flow with the complex conditions and also multi-stage approvals and all these things, right? Just with the configurations without writing any code. Of course, it's a low-code thing we are talking about. Okay. So coming to approval, right? So we're going to build a simple condition for now that any of the mission which we are going to order, right? If the price is greater than 400, so it has to go to one more layer of manager approval. But if the mission is falls under price falls under 400, we go with the basic approvals. And also, I'm going to talk about how we can delegate. For example, that approver whom this request goes to, right? If the approval for some reason, if he's not available, maybe out of office or he's on a planned leave, or maybe that his request falls on the weekend, non-working day. So how to handle that? Okay, so those things called as delegated things. So those configurations also I'm going to talk about. Okay, so now let's get to the demo. Yeah, so for the prerequisite, right, I hope that you already have the environment available. And with that assumption, so the first thing, you can, this is the first place you can get started with. Okay, so for this demo, right, I would need, I'm going to use two different applications. So if you see, right, there is a machine ordering. Okay, so there is this machine ordering app. Through this app, we're going to submit the request, and then so this is one part of it, right? So in any business, if you take right to make any approvals happen, you would need a data. Okay, so that means if I have to take an example of leave request or a travel expense request, right? First, the record has to be created. Okay, so then based on the record data, okay, if I take a leave request example, the leave request will have the information like what is the reason for the leave request, and also how many days that request contains, and the description and all the details. So once that leave request record gets created, then comes the approval part. So whereas that approval, you would go and configure that, okay, I'm expecting a leave request. If my leave request has these parameters, for example, if the leave request is just for 1 day or 2 day, that means it's not serious. So it doesn't need to go to the multiple level of approvals. Okay, so then I can we can configure that it's auto approves if the leave is 1 day or 2 day. But if the leave request is like more than configured number of days, maybe a week or 2 weeks, so that means definitely that's going to impact the running business, and definitely that leave request has to go to multiple approvals. Maybe it has to go to the manager of the person who is requesting the leave, and also the business admin, or some other multiple approvals it has to go through. Okay, so now just to summarize these two things, right, what I just mentioned, you would need a trigger. The trigger is that the record has to be created first. And once the record gets created in the system, then you would need to have that approval configuration, listening to it, and react and go and create that the approval request. Okay, so far I'm talking about two things. One is that the records, and also that approvals. Okay, so to create the records, I'm going to leverage this machine ordering application. And don't worry, you don't need to build all this by your own. This app is readily available. You can download it. Okay, I'm going to show you that in a bit, how to download. But yeah, this is the app where the request gets created. Now, once the request gets created, what is that needs to happen? Like whether it has to go to a simple approval, or it has to go to multi-stage approval, or any delegation rules and everything. So to configure that, right, we would need this approvalKit application. Okay, so for these two applications, we would need to install, we would need to have two solutions. One, we on our environment, right, we're going to install something called Contours of Coffee solution. Okay, so if you install the solution, you would get this machine order app. Now, the second thing is that we need to install the business approval kit solution. Once you install the business approval kit solution, you would we would get this approval management thing. Okay, yeah. So now let's see how to get these two solutions so that we can go and create approvals, configure approvals. Okay, I'm taking back you to this thing. This link is anyway already provided in the deck. You can go back and check. So what it is, this is just a learning path. Now here, if you go right, the second section of it, it says import contour solution. So for that, this contour solution, right, it is a part of an app in a day trainer package. So once you click on this, right, you would get a zip folder. You would be able to download. So I have downloaded that already just to save the time. This looks like this. It's a zip folder. I have unpacked it. And here, if you see, right, it has some good information. If you are a beginner and all, right, you can go and read through this. But if you need to get the app, right, you can go to this completed lab thing and go to the module 2. And then this is the solution. Yep, just go and install the solution. Okay, so now the steps which I just mentioned, right, they are already documented here. You can go to the folder and everything. It is already documented here. But otherwise, you need to install this and go to this solution and import that into your environment. So once you import that environment, and by the way, that's the unmanaged solution. Once you import that thing, right, make sure you publish the customizations. Okay, so with that solution, it is the solution just contain two components. One is that app, the Canvas app, which we have seen before, and the table. The table name is machine order. Okay, so that's about the request app. So if by importing or installing this Contours of Coffee, you would be able to submit the request. Now the second part is the approval. How do we configure that approvals? Okay, so for that, right, we need to install something called approvalKit solution. How do we get that? And again, that information is already there in the get started thing. But just to save the time, right? Yeah. So now this is the place. Actually, in this thing, in this learn path, right? If you go to the next slide, there'll be a path. The path will tell you that how to get the approvalKit solution, and also it will talk about the prerequisites that you first need to install the creator-kit solution, and then you will need to install the approvalKit. Okay, so basically there is a link mentioned in the documentation. That link will take you to. Okay, the link will take you to the releases page. And if you see, right, there was every month you will find a new release with the features and bug fixes. Okay, but otherwise, to download it, right, you can go and install that solution from here. Okay, so just in case, right, if you are installing this, you would be having the February release, and then if you are installing in the future, right, you would be having that with the date stamp different. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, once you complete the installation, right, so I have installed both solutions. Okay, so once that is done, the next thing is I'll show you how to create a request, the machine order request. From the Canvas app, so you can select the multiple coffee machines. If you want, for example, I'm interested in these two coffee machines, so I'm going to compare this, and then I feel this is better one. This suits my requirement. Okay, need this machine. Yep. So I'm going to submitting mission request. Yeah. So now you see this, right? The request has been created, the mission request, and currently both I'm playing the role of both approver and requested by, because just for the demo, right, I'm using myself as a requester and approver. Okay. So now this is just first part of it. Now the request has been created, and if you go and refresh this table here, right, you would see those records. Okay, so you would see those three records, because there's a one record I created before this session, and there are 2 clicks we did, so that's why it created 2 things. Yeah, but if you see so far, this is just a request, and because we haven't configured any approval in the backend, so nothing going to happen. Just that whatever request we created, right? They just simply go and get stored into that tables. Okay, so now let's going to build a the approval thing. Okay, as and when a request gets created, right? Then we're going to configure the approval. We're going to add that approval flavor to this the business scenario. Then how to do that? So for that, go to the approvalKit business approval management app. And how do we come here? Um, with the second solution, which I just mentioned, right? That business approvalKit solution. Once you install that, and you would get this one canvas app. It's called business approval management, and just select this and play, and that will take you to this screen. Okay, now a quick walkthrough about this thing. So here you will come to the landing page. There's a landing page, and also, of course, there are quick links. Okay, where the most frequently used table links we have provided here. But otherwise, it has 3 areas. One is that approval center, which is the landing page, and also the approval designer. We'll see that in a bit. And also, finally, there is a setup. Okay, so setup where you can configure your, as a company, right? You can configure your the holidays, calendars, work profiles, which I'll demo it later. Okay, let's go back to the landing page. Okay, so in the landing page, what you see here, there are 3 sections. One is that configure a workflow. So this is where we start our approval configuration, and then a link a workflow. This is where more like a learning. It will take you to the learning thing, how to get started and all. And the third thing is configure basic settings. Okay, so this also I'll just show you, but the more details I'll cover it later. Okay, so at a high level, the my settings page, right? I logged in as a user, and let's say if I'm out of office, or if I'm not working for some reason, right? I can create a delegate. So let's say if I'm not available, maybe a person XYZ can be my approval delegate, and also I can select a backup delegate, and also all these things. All right, now let's go to the configuration of workflow. What is the scenario here we are talking about is, so first we'll start with the basic flow, and then we'll add the multi-stage flow. Okay, so the scenario what I'm going to cover now is whenever a mission request gets created, right, then it has to go for an approval. Okay, that is what I'm going to show you now. So let's get started. I'm going to configure a flow. It'll open up a Canvas app. Sorry, a custom page. Yeah, and here you have 2 options. One is that modern, and also the legacy designer. I'm going with the modern one. So I'm going to name it mission request approvals. And here you see, right, there are variables, versions, and save. We'll cover that as part of the demo. But let's get started. I just named it, and at a high level, right, every workflow will have something called stages and nodes. Okay, so what is a stage? So let me show you that the stage name. The stage name is that I'm going to call as the basic approval stage. Okay, and if you see the description, right, this is the first stage of the progress, and condition rules are not applicable. Okay, so for now, right, let's go with the flow, and definitely when I'm going to create move forward further, right, you would understand what I'm talking about. But stage, right, just understand this as so let's say if a mission request, right, that initially would want to go with a basic request, like anybody who submit the request, it has to go to one person for approval. Maybe your business, right, imagine that you have a business admin who take care of the approvals. And so the first stage is that any request that gets submitted, right, it has to go to that business admin. And then based on the cost of the mission, if the mission cost is too expensive, right, then business admin, right, cannot take the decision by he or him, her or himself. Then the business, then we have to create another approval. Like, okay, because the mission is expensive, it has to go to a next level of approval, maybe manager approval. Okay, so now here the basic approval and admin approval, you can consider that as two different stages. Okay, now let's go with the first level of stage, which is the basic approval stage, and let me save it. Okay, so now all you have is just a skeleton now or a template. Then we have to go and add a node. So this node, right? In a way, you can consider this as a standard approval connector. Okay, so you would know why what I'm talking about. Um, okay, so now the node type. If you see right, I'm going to call it as initial approval. Yep, and next. So let's see this. I think if you are familiar with that approval action, right, in the flow, if you would have created flows with approvals and all, these options are familiar, right? These are very familiar. Okay, maybe I'll go back to the slide a bit. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. I mean, if you are familiar with this, these icon right here. So the node in the business approval kit, right? It is equivalent to this one. Okay, the manager approval, what you're seeing here. Okay, moving back to. Okay, moving back to this. Yeah. So this option, I'm going with the basic thing. I'm going to say this approval. Everyone must approval, or I'll say first to respond. And then here I'm going to add who is my approver. So I'm going to give my name. So here my account name is Linner. Okay. I'm going to select myself as an approval, and then you have an option that the notification, right, whether it and an approver, the notification can go to multiple places. So typically it might look like this. Okay, approval can come as approval request, right, can come as an email or a team request, or even a mobile app, and also yeah, there are different options. So, and then the delegation rule, we'll talk about this later. Okay, so that's the node. Okay, so all right. Now, what we did so far, right? We have created the manager mission request approval, and then we have put a stage and one stage, and with the basic approval that we haven't put any condition. So basically, what we are mentioning is, right, any request that gets created, it will go to Lynn Robbins for approval. That's it. Okay, so now let's go and save it. Yeah, so this whole process is saved successfully, and then there is a publish. I mean, so at this point, the save is just you saved it, and this is not in usage yet. Okay, to make this workflow, the configured workflow to be usable, right? You have to publish it. Okay, I just clicked on publish, and you see, right? We have an option whether to activate the process when published, yes or no. By default is yes. So now I'm going to publish it. Okay, anyway, the publishing would take up to 1 minute. So you can keep refreshing and see what is happening in the background. Now, meanwhile, right, we can do one thing. So far, just to summarize from the beginning, right, we have a machine ordering app where we would be able to create the request. And on the other hand, we went and created the the workflow with a simple condition. So now how to tie these two things together? Okay, so for that, we have to do one additional step. I'm going to go back to the slide again. And if you see right, the example slide, the workflow, what we have created, to be able to use it, we have to create another cloud flow. Okay, so this is what we're going to do now. Okay, so now if you see that I'm going back to the Contoso Coffee solution, and here, because it's unmanaged solution, right, I can go and extend and build the rules. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new cloud flow, and this one I'm going to automate it. Okay, let's quickly go to skip. Yeah. So what's the use of this approval? What's the use of this flow is that because we have a request that gets created from the this Canvas app, and then we also have this configuration done. Okay. Now we need to combine this together. Okay. So now we need to configure a system such a way that whenever a request comes in, right, this workflow what you have configured in the background should be kicked in. Okay. That's why we're going to create a flow. Yeah. I'm going to name this as mission request approval flow. Okay, so now because it's an automated thing, I created this as an automated thing. And also my mission request is record is storing in Dataverse, right? I'm going to select this one. Okay, so I'm going to choose the change type as added. That means whenever a mission request gets created, right, then I want this flow to be triggered. And what is my table name? The table name is mission. Okay, mission orders, and that scope I'm going with organization. Okay, so now the next step. What is the next step? The next step is that whenever you have this record created, then we want this flow workflow which we have configured, right? We want that to be triggered. So for that, when you install this solution, right, approvalKit solution, you will have something called custom connector. The the custom connector with this name approvalKit. Okay, we're going to leverage that one. Okay, so I'm going to use the custom, and then here you see, right, approvalKit, and it has currently only one action. So what we are saying is go and start the connector business process. Okay, so now here, this is how it looks. And if you see what is our workflow name, the workflow what we have configured, right? It's a mission request approvals. So here, let me expand this. Okay, so I think there's a delay. Let me go and refresh. Okay, I'm going to do this a temporary thing. You would not require this. Okay, because if I would have refreshed this, right, I would have lost all the things. Right, that's the reason I added this compose action, because to save the flow, right, you would need both trigger and action. That's why I've used this compose action. Now the flow is saving, and okay. So now, yeah, sometimes, right, you would experience the delay because we have created the mission request and published. And then here, if you see the version, right, currently there is a active version called V1. And then immediately what we did, we immediately went, jumped on, created this flow. So sometimes, right, you would experience a delay. That's why you would we could not, or we did not see that flow previously. So now what I'm doing is I'm refreshing this flow. Okay, let's go back and edit again. Yeah, so just for this demo, right, because we have to go in a quick set of events, but otherwise, if you are doing or configuring in a project, right, you have a time basically. You can configure it, and then you can come back a little later so that this workflow would be published. Okay, so I'm switching back to the classic because I know many of the folks, right, are not yet familiar with the new designer. So I switch back to the classic. Okay, so now this is where we were in. Now we have this trigger whenever a request is created. So now let's go and try now. I hope the workflow what we configured would show up here. Okay, this is strange. All right, I think the demo gods are not kind today. Um, okay, so anyways, the running part, I'll show it from a different screen. I mean, different environment because I have it as a backup environment I have created. But before that, what I want to do is I would go and extend this further. That see, currently this is a basic flow, right? So now what I'm going to show you is so let's say how to extend this and make a multi-stage flow. Okay, multi-stage approval process. So for that. What I'm going to do is I switched back to this approval management app again, and this same flow, right? I'm going to add a new stage. Okay, and again, I'm going to trigger this flow. I'll show how to trigger it from a different environment because for some reason it is not showing up here yet. But meanwhile, I'm going to show you that how to create a multi-stage flow approval process. Okay, so now let's take a scenario. So what is the scenario? If any mission requester, right? If the price of that is more than $400, so then that has to go to a manager approval. Okay, so let's see how to do that. For that, I'm switching back to this thing. So here, what is the key factor? Here, the pricing is a key factor, right? That means if the price is more than a limit, then it has to trigger, it has to go to a different, the next stage. Okay, so how to capture the key information? Okay, to capture the key information, we have something called variables. Okay, so I'm going to show you in the flow how these variables are would come into place. But for now, just that understand, you need to understand what is that the factor to decide whether it has to go to the next level. In this case, the factor is the price. If the price is more than 400, right, it has to go. So that's why we need to create that as a variable. Okay, so mission price, and then I'm going to select the data type. It's a number and close it. Okay, so now we have the variables ready. Let's go and say this, create a stage. It's like manager approval stage. And here there's a condition because this manager approval, right? We don't call it every time. This has to satisfy a condition. So how to set the condition? Here I'm going and here you have two options. So it's a if and else, and also you have a switch. Okay, so switch, right? If you want to go with the parallel execution up to 5, then you can go with the switch. And basically, what does this switch do? So let's say if we have a categorization, let's say if the price falls maybe between 200 to 300, it has to go. It has to go a certain approval, or if it falls between 300 to 400 certain approval, and 400 to 500, right? If those kind of parallel approval you would need, right, you have to go with this one. But otherwise, if your approval is simple enough, like the way what we are going to configure, right, you can go with that if else. Okay, so what we are going to configure now is if the price is greater than 400, go for approval, manager approval. Otherwise, you find with that automated approval, which we configured as a stage 1. Okay, so now I'm choosing if else. So select the source. So source is request data, and here it is, the variable which we have created, right? The variable we created is mission price, and then we take it, and here we say if it is greater than or equals to, yep, static value, and what is the static value here? I'm going with the thing that anything go more than $400. Okay, so that's it. Save. Okay, now you see, right, the stage has nicely branched. The what is the branch here? If it is greater than 400, just go and do something. So now for now, if it is more than 400, I want to create a approval for my manager. Okay, so I'm going with first to respond, And otherwise, if you, I mean, you can mention the approver here. For the demo, right, I'm going with a static way of, I'm going with a fixed approver. Okay, but if your case is different, you can also go with the dynamic that you have options here that who is initiating it or who is the last approver, all these conditions, yeah, that you can explore it later. But I'm going with the basic approval. That's it. I'm going to save it. Okay, so now you see, right, we have configured the second stage and we haven't saved this yet. Okay, let's go and save this. And I'm leaving this as is because I don't require any separate condition that if it is less than 400, because we already have initial approval process that will take care of less than 400. Let's save it and publish. Okay, so here the versions plays an important role. So let's say there was a previous version, right, which is already in use. So that means whoever is approving or whoever is, I mean, the application, you don't need to bring that the approval rules down. The V1 would be still active, and whoever submitting the request, right, that the workflow V1 would takes care of the rules and all. But now the moment we click on publish, this V2 comes into picture. Okay, but again, this is pending, status is pending, and this will take some time. Okay, so now this is how we create the multi-stage approvals, and you can also go deep that you can create as many as you want, the multiple approvals. Um, so now here I want to talk about few things. And if you are a pro dev, right, if you really want to understand what is happening behind the scenes, you can go here. And again, so if you are a citizen developer or a low code into low code, right, you don't really need to understand all this. But if you are a pro code and if you want to understand what is happening behind the scenes, right, if you go to this design area, you see two sections, designer and runtime definitions. All the workflows what you configure, right, they go and get created as process table. And of course, there are all the child records, that stages and nodes and everything. Okay, and so now when you publish a particular workflow, then that will go and create as published processes. Okay, so now the published processes currently you see, right, that version 2 is published, and then these are all the runtime. That means which are in use. And whereas in designer, sometimes what happens, right? I'm as an admin, right? I might be in the process of configuring, but I don't want to make it available to my business yet. So that at that point of time, right? I just create it, but I don't publish it. Okay, so now this part, the top part, right? It contain all the unpublished things. But whereas coming to the runtime definitions, this published processes contains the published things, and same with the stages and nodes. Okay, so why I'm telling this, right? Tomorrow, if you want to put any hook, right? For example, if some workflow is published, if you want to send a notification that a new workflow approval is available now, you can send out, you can put another hook that, right? Whenever this status is published, and you can write your own custom flow, and then you can put a email connector and send out an email, right? You can extend it. That's the reason I'm bringing this up. Okay, so now we have that workflow configured. Now let's go and try our luck one last time. I'm going to refresh again. Okay, and again, hope you are following that it's a two-part thing. One, you need to have a way to create the records, and then you need to have these approvals configured. Okay, so now let's go and try one last time that hopefully it will show up now, the published workflow. I'm selecting this approvalKit, start business approval process. All right, okay, so yeah, let me switch to, okay, let me switch to an environment. Okay, at least I'll show you that Okay, so now this is my test environment, and then the missing part which I could not show you here, right? So I'm going to show it here in a different environment, but the context would be same. Okay, and a mission request got created, and then you have a flow, and then how to trigger the flow. So you see, right? Okay, so now this is how it looks like. Let me delete it and add again. Okay, whenever a record is created, mission order is created, right? Then you can go and add a custom connector and then approvals. And here, this workflow process. Okay, you should be able to see all the workflows you have created. And see, I have here I have two workflows available. One is mission request and demo. There is another workflow I've created. But once you select that, so then these are the variables I've configured. So that's why those variables are showing up here. And then the requested by, I need to provide it that who requested this. So you can parameterize it and save it. Okay, so once we have this flow ready, then you know, right? It's a typical workflow. So when this workflow is active, and then whenever a record gets created, okay. So now these are the succeeded flows. Okay, whenever a record is created, right, then it will go and trigger this flow. And whatever things configured, right, in the conditions and everything, stages, notes, and everything, and based on that, email would send out. Okay, this is what the email, and because here in this case the requester and approver both are myself, right? So then I have used this thing. Okay, and I know we are short of time, but I just want to show one last thing, then I'll go and take questions. Okay, so then what I want to show now is yeah, the delegations. Okay, so the before the delegations, let me go to the setup. So as an organization, right, every organization has a policy that let's say we are into 2024, right, FI 2024. So I can create a calendar, and then in this calendar I can add the holidays, maybe New Year. And then I can set, okay, this January 1st is a new year. Okay, similarly, you can go and create the holidays, all the holidays. And once that is done, you can go and create a work profile flow. And maybe this holiday you are only targeting for IT department. Okay, IT department profile. And then you give the calendar. And that's it. And these are the default working days. Maybe if your IT department works in a different days, you can set this. Okay, so now here we configure this as a work profile, and this work profile would be tied to users, that approvers. And let's say if this particular user has tied with this approval, and assume that there is a request that comes on January 1st. Okay, so because the January 1st declared as a holiday, and the approver is not available to approve, and then there is an option. One option is that that approval instance, right? It has to wait till the person comes back from the leave, and otherwise, the second option we have is, right, that person can go and set a delegation, right? So the delegation can be set that yeah, who is my backup and all these things, and out of office and all. Okay, so here I'll select my work profile. This is my work profile, and then all these things can be configured. Okay, and I know we have a limited time. I could not cover many. I could not cover the things, but I hope I'm able to cover at a high level things, and I hope I have given some way for you to get started. But so let me continue with the documentation, and I'll finish off the slide. Sorry, my mouse also not helping me today. Okay, sorry. going back to the slide. Okay, so let's see this here. Now, what is the difference? Now you would understand, right? You have an out of office, work days, holidays, you can configure and you can delegate the approvals and multi-stage and approval. You can also keep the track of history that who approved when, and all the timestamps and everything gets stored in the Dataverse tables. Okay, so now it's a clear differentiator. I hope you would understand now that in the standard connector, that to do all these things, definitely somebody has to go and configure it manually, and which would require some knowledge. But whereas approvalKit, right, it's mostly configuration, like how we have seen. So that's a difference. And a demo we have gone through. And then what is a high-level architecture? The high-level architecture, if you want to see, I have provided the link. You can go there. But at a high level, right, you have a design tables and also runtime. I think I touch base this at a very high level. That runtime is nothing but whatever published thing, right? Those get stored in those tables. Yeah. Then how do I learn? And this is the thing, if you want to use as is, right, you can follow this these links, the try approvalKit. But if you want to go and create the multi-stage and approvals and everything, you can go and use this link. And then the third thing, if you really want to extend, like I mentioned, right, let's say if any new workflow published, right, you would want to notify all your users that a new workflow has been published. So those kind of things, it's a level 300. That means you have to understand the table, that which table gets updated on a particular entry. Then you can go and write a plugin or Cloudflow or whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah, and finally, go and check the lending module. This is what I have started with. And then once you complete that, you can get that rewards also. All right. That's about the presentation. I think we have only 2 minutes left. I'm open for questions.
Thank you so much, Rajeev. It was really, really mind-blowing. We have a couple of questions over the chat, and I would like to just quickly go through with that. So your colleague Ludwig is asking, why is the approvalKit is a premium connector? That is the first question. So if you would like to.
Right. So if you see, right, approvalKit, it is storing the stages, conditions, and nodes and everything, right, in a Dataverse tables. And because we all know, right, Dataverse is a premium connector. That's the reason. Yeah.
Okay. The second question, I think, again, from the Ludwig itself, that how complex can this approval workflows become? And do you also support 15 plus downwards conditions?
Actually, the ceiling, I need to check the documentation, but I would welcome people to go and try it. But we have customers using pretty complex workflows. And just in case if it doesn't work for some reason, and if you face any issue, right, let me take you to this, right? This is the GitHub. And in the GitHub, you can log the issue just like this. And you see, right, there are issues created 3 days ago. And also we are very proactive. And sometimes, right, we would also come into the session with you. We troubleshoot, we help you as much as possible. Yeah, just go and try it and let us know.
Okay, and then very quickly, the last question. I think the answer we already know by this time. So is there approvalKit something that comes officially from the Microsoft and it is fully supported by the Microsoft?
I cannot comment, or I don't know at this point of time, Ambesh, but yeah, just keep watching the space. So, I mean, you can follow me also. There's a the PowerCat team. If you follow, right, you would know that what's in offering in future. And also one important thing, there is a monthly office hours we conduct, right?
Okay.
So you all know, right, office hours. So we'll update that. What are the features? What is in the pipeline? And also, if you have any the pressing demanding feature, right, which you would want to see, just that we conduct a poll and then we take the most frequent, most requested feature, right, and then we go and implement that in the kit. Okay, so please join that office hours that you can influence the product.